And I do hope folks get on camera. We will upload this video to YouTube, and I understand the sensitivity of talking about special education. Want to honor anyone's privacy that may not feel comfortable, so then you can be off camera. But again, in the sense of community, and I hope once you see the vision that we have, you will be more emboldened to want to publicly step up and out into the, just gonna start with introducing. I'm gonna actually take the screen off so we can be a little more visible with each other, and just giving you all a chance if you want to screenshot the agenda, because I'm gonna take it off and just look at it, not as a shared screen. Okay. Anyone need a moment? All right, stop share. Okay, so again, thank you all for being here. My name is Chioma Rue. I am the mother of two young boys, Ati and Jedi, ages 10 and 7 years old, and they both attend non-public schools. Their LEA is DCPS, and they're both on the autism spectrum. My oldest son has a diagnosis of ADHD and autism, and my youngest has anxiety and autism, with some similar behaviors that kind of, interact with the different diagnoses that they have. And both are partially verbal, as in they can communicate basic wants and needs, but are not really great conversationally and miss a lot of social cues. Those are my boys. They are brilliant, the love of my life, and the reason why I do everything. So I just want you all to share a bit about yourselves. I'm going to start with the PAAT fellows, and I'm going to call on people just so we can get through introductions, fairly quickly. And I'm just calling people as I see on my screen. So I'm going to start with the PAAT fellows. I see Michelle on my screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Michelle Parrish, and as Chioma indicated, I am a PAAT fellow. I'm a parent of two here in the District of Columbia. I have one student who has special education requirements due to a myriad of diagnoses. That is what has actually propelled me into this work. I am, in addition to being a PAAT fellow, I'm a parent ambassador with AJE. I am also a parent member of Thrive 55 DC, and I am 1/4 of the group known as We the Motherhood, the parent support group for families of students with special needs and the community abroad who aligns with us. I'm so happy to have everyone here with us today.
Great, thank you, Michelle. I'll be back on screen in a second. Yolanda?
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize if you get feedback. I am in the car, but safely though, just for the sake of recording. I have 3 children, which my oldest one has a diagnosis of autism. He is verbal and on the more high functioning end of the spectrum. I am a PAAT fellow, as Chioma mentioned. And I'm not good with math, so Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong. Does that make me 2/4 of We the Motherhood? I don't know.
You are also 1/4.
Oh, okay. See, 1/4, 2/4. Blame DCPS, but I digress. I'm coming to you today in the capacity of being a PAAT fellow. I'm also on the My School DC Parent Action Committee, along with PAVE, Ward 7, Parent Leader Education, and a slew of other initiatives to help our students here in the District of Columbia. And also, here's Tyler himself, who would like to say hello. Hi. He is joining us today on the town hall to hear all the wonderful stories and solutions that we come up with today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Fari on the 202-710 number? 89752? I don't think so. So, Elizabeth, so we're starting with intros. I know you just got here. Okay, and you're fixing your headphones. I just saw that. So there are three other PAAT fellows that were waiting. I think that that's Fari on the phone. I'm not sure. I think she would speak up. And so there's Elizabeth, who will introduce herself shortly, and Fari Tumpe, who hopefully will arrive soon, and Angelique Spite. So, that as the fellows are able to introduce themselves, Elizabeth, are you able to, do you have your headphones? Nope, not yet. So I'm going to start with Anna Cook, and we'll come back to the rest of the fellows.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. My name is Anna Cook, and I'm a parent of a 7-year-old autistic son who attends DCPS, and I am also a parent ambassador with the AJE.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth, are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Elizabeth Reddick. I have 5 children. 2 of them go to school here in DC, one at a DC public charter school and one at DC public schools. My son that is at a public charter school actually goes to Bridges Public Charter School, and he also has autism. And so basically a lot of my advocacy surround is based. It started, I want to say, basically with him, but now it's expanded to, just trying to get equitable services for all children in the district. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So, Khadijah Williams.
Hi, my name is Khadijah Williams. I am the Senior Education Organizer at Rocket Ship. I don't have any children, but I have ADHD and a reading disability. And I also experienced chronic homelessness as a child, and there's a lot of overlap between, homelessness and, children's ability to learn and disabilities. And so I'm here to hear perspectives from parents and learn as much as I can. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, exactly, ACEs.
Yes, thank you so much. And, as a self-advocate, knowing what I know about you and all the great things you've accomplished in the community, you are an inspiration to all of our children, and hopefully we can find better ways to amplify the voices of our self-advocates, the adult self-advocates, who our children will be. So thank you. LaJoy Johnson-Law, my darling.
Hello, darling. Hey, everybody. My name is LaJoy Johnson-Law. I'm a Ward 8 resident. My daughter is Abria. She is enrolled in special education. She is diagnosed with chronic lung disease and epilepsy because of her extreme prematurity. So always fighting a good fight for our caregivers of children with disabilities. Just a little bit about me. Abria goes to Rocket Ship. So, hey, Khadijah. I'm a parent leader there. I'm a parent member of the Ward 8 Education Council. I'm on the Ward 8 DEMS. I'm on Thrive by 5 with Michelle. I work at AJE as the parent support specialist. I'm another 1/4 of We the Motherhood. I'm in the political arena. Y'all pray for me. And I think that's it. I don't even know. I'm so tired. I'm like, I can't even talk about myself.
Ward 8. SBOA. Okay. So thank you.
She played that so humbly. Did you see that? So humble.
I'm humble, Chioma.
Well, get into it, and I know she's warming up her fire pipes, so we'll just slowly ease our way into things. So Angie, Patty?
Hi, everyone. I don't have children. I'm actually with the Children's Law Center, and I'm an investigator for them. Yeah, wonderful place to be. I really get to interact with wonderful people. So I'm just here to kind of hear, your stories, your perspectives, and take that back to our organization so we can continue to do the job that we do. So it's an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Tony? Okay, we'll come back to Tony. Renee. Renee Davis.
Hey everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Renee Davis. I'm a parent of 2 kiddos with special needs. We're a family of neurodiverse autistic folks. My 16-year-old girl goes to a school that has a private school placement. My 11-year-old son, who's both autistic and has anxiety disorder, goes to inclusion-based Capital City Public Charter School. And I am, I'm just a little burnt out. It's been a long day of map testing, and trying to chart a course where I have a combination of in-school, home, virtual schooling, and have medical-based services happen in the home, kind of on a parallel track here. Sorry for, I'm also a member of PAVE. This will be my 2nd year trying to work with PAVE as part of a Ward 1 parent board type folks. I'm an alumni of DC Advocacy Partners. I did a year, like a half a year training course with DC Advocacy Partners on being a better advocate for disability services for both my family and other families in DMV. And I'm co-moderator with another DC Advocacy Partners alumni, Cherie Mallory, of a blog Facebook support-based group called Parents with a Purpose Autism Supports. So this will be like our 4th year of actively trying to assist people with information about autism and other disability-related rights and services, both in the educational, the medical, and then hopefully societal realms. So I'm going to switch back to muting my voice in my stopping my video, but I'm here on the call and I'm listening in on a bigger screen while I kind of just decompress from today. So
Great, thank you for being here. Another dynamic mom, that really has, showed me so many guidance. So a lot of great people that I know so much about. So and I can't wait for you all to know each other better. Kalita Boyd.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm commuting and working. Kalita Boyd here. I'm a DC Ward 8 parent of 3 sons. My youngest has special needs, social emotional and learning disability. And I have 2 older sons in college, one soon to graduate from the University of the District of Columbia. Also a community change fellow, PAVE, parent leader and education board member. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And it's good to see everyone.
Great, thank you so much for being here, and we are fellows together. Carla Reed-Witt.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Carla Reed-Witt. I've been an educational advocate for about 20 years, special education for about 17 years, and mental health for, I guess, about 4 years now. I have 3 kids, all of whom are legally adults now. I have two in college. And I belong to a lot of advisory groups and coalitions.
Great, thank you. And Carla, another one strong mom in my support system. I wrote an article on Blavity around the different categories of moms. And Carla, you don't know this, but you are a key prototype. You should read it. I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it, and see if you can identify yourself in it. And last is on the phone, 202-710-8952. I think that's Fari. Maybe there's a connection issue. Okay, so we're just going to get into the agenda, the rest of the agenda here. So it's, sorry, just trying to pull it up on my kid's computer, real life. Did extend invitations, at least on Twitter. I didn't feel like it was the kind of, our gathering today, I wanted it to be as much parent-centered and people-centered as possible. So in terms of the level of invitation and outreach that I made to city leaders was strictly on Twitter, right? Make it real public. So if any, is inclined to join, that's great. But the intent of this meeting is not for them. The goal for them to be here, and we'd be honored for them to be here, but the goal is really for our parents to have a space to talk out our issues and join us in terms of the PAAT team on the next steps we want to take. But first, wanting to gauge you on steps we've already taken. So I think, okay, so I just want to pause 1 second. One of our PAAT fellows that just joined, Angelique, I know you just came in, hate to put you on the spot, but do you mind just introducing yourself?
Not a problem. Hi, my name is Angelique Spate Marshall, and I am a PAAT fellow. I am also a member of the Spaces in Action. I am the proud owner of Mrs. P's Child and Family Services in Washington, D.C. I am also doing a fellowship with Educare and on Community of Change, supporting childcare and children with special needs. Anything else you need? I'm a resident of Ward 2. And today I am focusing on the children from CFSA. I have a bunch of them, and they're going to school, so we're placing them around today. That's my story.
Great, thank you. Thank you for being here. So I just want to, quick overview. I'm going to share my screen again just to share the petition and use that as a bit of a guide as I'm going to talk a bit about history and the steps that we've taken thus far. And has anyone not signed the petition? I'm going to drop a link of the petition, or Michelle, somehow when I share links, I feel like they're not correct. Michelle, do you mind dropping a link of the petition in the chat, please?
Copy.
And so I'm going to share my screen because I think it's the best articulation of where we are. Again. So the first step we did, first we meet. So the Parent Advocacy Action Team, we've been convening since July. And, as part of, I started my company in November last year after I came to a conclusion that there are unique avenues in which I wanted to take to address some of the issues, to collaborate with all the great partners that I've been working with and have grown to work with in my years as an advocate. And I was working with Advocates for Justice and Education. I'm still working on a contractual basis, so they're one of my contracts. So with AJE on the Parent Ambassador Program. And in that journey, part of my conclusion was that it's important to have independent agency that is not necessarily bound to some of the activities that are limited to a nonprofit. And wanting us to engage but also wanting to collaborate with nonprofits, with government systems, and with private actors um, to support a disability agenda and an equity agenda that really connects the dots through the lifespan. As part of that process, one of the key partnerships that I was able to establish is with an organization in Minneapolis called the Bright Beam Network. And as part of the Bright Beam Network, I am an activist on the for DC as part of their activist network. But I was also able to broker a fellowship program that I'm launching now, which is the Parent Advocacy Action Team. So this is our first year, and we hope that it has a lifespan where we can bring on parent leaders many years, deepen the relationships with the existing fellows, and hopefully be able to take on new fellows. It's a stipend, and we meet twice a week in general to take on specifically around issues relating to uh, equity, racial equity specifically, and special education and the educational gap, the opportunity gap. There is a report that Bright Beam put out called The Secret Shame. And it really speaks to the disparities of cities, progressive cities, so-called progressive cities, and how their education systems have some of the widest disparities in racial achievement. In me being part of the network, I always bring my full self, which is why I knew I had to branch out and do my own thing, is that I cannot help but bring my full self into things. And in bringing my full self into the activist network for Brightbeam, it came it just, for me to take on the work of racial equity in education and looking at graduation rates and, low reading rates and low proficiency in general, math and reading, um, low test scores. As a parent, as an educational advocate, as a trained educational advocate, I know how huge, how much bigger that issue is when you intersect it with disability. So, as part of the PAAT um, fellowship program, we're taking on different avenues to engage the community, to work in coalition with other family organizations, to work with government partners when possible, and to work with the greater network of disability special education advocates, organizations like AJE and Children's Law, and the bigger network, um, and lots of different decoding dyslexia, quality trust. There's just a wide range of organizations that are out here doing work in different capacities. And we want to be able to partner with PAVE, of course, partner with anyone that, that is aligned to the issue of special education, specific to the fellowship. But in general, my company deals also with healthcare, which is a big part of how we navigate the systems. So all of that to say, um, we've been meeting bi-weekly since July. We've taken on a few different things. We've launched a show called, it's hashtag Pat Down 202 Storytelling. We've had really dynamic guests, including Joe Patterson and Gail Event, who are two parent leaders who've been in the trenches in the community for a long time in the behavioral health space. They came in and shared our stories with us. We've also had Fraser O'Leary and Janice Lewis George, who are Ward 4 leaders, City Council. Janice is the Democratic nominee for Ward 4, and Fraser is the current SBOE for Ward 4, and he is also going to be in his next term. Both of them have secure seats, so we wanted to engage them and get a better understanding of what they get on special education. And so we'll use that platform to invite different leaders throughout the city to engage with us on different levels, just through a storytelling process. As a result of our continuous meeting and gathering and finding different dynamic ways to engage mostly now on the digital platform, even though we hope to be able to branch out into the community soon. I hope a dad calls in. There's a dad who met with us sometime last week who is going through a tough time with his son and, is interested in doing some kind of learning pod, just because he's lost complete trust of the special education system. And he's a single dad raising an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old autistic son. That's one idea that we hope that you all can maybe join us as we try to deepen an understanding of ways we can collaborate. We are also planning to launch an IEP Vault, which is a process in which we would be sharing each other's IEPs under, circle of trust and comparing notes, like, what accommodations our kids are getting, and trying to create, and the essence of that is to ensure that our kids in all LEAs and in all schools are getting the best. And so we'll call on our partners, the legal side, so Children's Law, AJE, heads up, to support us in that process as we continue to develop it. Likely won't launch till, the new year in a good way, but just knowing that that's part of the development of what we've been doing since July. Again, as we deepen our understanding of the issues facing us, and as we are all families of kids, school-age kids, and in Angelique's case, she is a provider for the youngest children, the most vulnerable children. We are committed to creating solutions by any means necessary, right? And to that end, we thought it is only right that we start with with an olive branch, with a carrot stick to the mayor. We wrote her a letter. We copied Deputy Mayor of Education, Paul Kine. We CC'd OSSI. We CC'd DCPS, the Chancellor. We copied the Executive Director of the Public Charter School Board, the Education Ombudsman, the Office of the Student Advocate, and the Executive Director of the State Board of Education. We did not copy people in City Council, other elected officials, and we did not copy elected officials on the State Board of Education, because we realize that we're in a city that we operate under mayoral control. So the biggest chunk of what needs to happen and who has agency to correct some of the grave errors that we've been able to identify in our lives and collectively together is our mayor. She appoints the chancellor. She appoints the deputy mayor. She appoints the superintendent. She appoints the executive director of SBOE. She appoints the executive director of PCSB and all the members of the PCSB. So that is what mayoral control means in our city. And so it is important, as they have taken steps that we find problematic, particularly as it relates to our kids. So the petition, as Michelle, thank you, has dropped it in the chat if you haven't got a chance. I'm not gonna read through the whole thing. You have the link there. You can review it if you signed it. You can look at it now for the first time if you're just learning about our petition. But the petition is essentially what was in the letter that we sent. We sent the letter on Monday, September 27th or 28th, whatever that last Monday in September was. And then we sent this out at the end of the week, because we figured if we didn't hear anything by the end of the week, we'll just move into phase 2. So, so the letter essentially, so our demands are essentially this. We recognize the DCPS's initiative to repurpose buildings to create learning pods. We heard through a researcher, there's Fari, we heard through a researcher that had engaged DCPS and had told the researcher at Georgetown University that they were rolling out learning pods specifically for special education students. We have no evidence of that. And I, you know, as soon as I finish speaking, we want a real check with the greater network here to help us understand, you know, what your experiences are. But from our vantage point, no one I know, no one that I support, no one that I work with or collaborate with has any knowledge of these learning pods. We know that the mayor released had a press release or a press conference earlier this week, noting that they were opening up community centers that would you know, accommodate for high needs special education students. Additional questions that we can add on to the next step, steps that we want to take is define high need, right? If you're a dyslexic child and are struggling, if you are a child with ADHD or a mental health condition, but you are verbal and don't have a cognitive impairment, but have significant need for support, do you meet the threshold for high need? And what are the remedies for you per all the privileges that you have under IDEA if you have an IEP, and 504 if you have a 504, the Rehabilitation Act, if you have a 504. Our other demand was that we want more clarification on if DCPS is providing autism coaching to families, you know, that will require them to send teacher's aid. Now, I will say personally, I had an IEP meeting with my youngest son, my 7-year-old, yesterday, and I took opportunity to personally inquire about this question of having an aide come into the home to support during distance learning because he's not able to access it by himself. And I am a working mom, and I have 2 sons on the spectrum. My hands are full. I'm also caring for my mom, who's now a widow, for my dad, since my dad passed away earlier this year. And she's a full-time caretaker of my brother who has schizophrenia. So our hands are very full. If we can have any support, we would like to know. The answer I was told in my IEP was no. And that what they would do, they agreed to add a dedicated aide to my son's IEP. So I'm open in disclosing that because that is my choice. But if any of you, in sharing your stories, do not feel comfortable in sharing at this point the details of, you know, what services and accommodations your child gets, I completely understand. But I am fully transparent because I feel that's what we need more of with each other and with all the LEAs. So, so the autism coaching coming in the home, which was also told to the Georgetown researcher, is not true. The official word from the DCPS rep on my IEP team was that they are not doing that, that they would give my son, they would add a dedicated aide onto his IEP, but they would, but he would, you know, the aide would show up virtually. What good is that? Like, you can't access virtual learning. That is not a solution. But if that's their policy, just be consistent. We want more clarification on that. We also want to know what programs that non-DCPS LEAs have. So Khadija, I'm happy that you're here, for children with disabilities virtually. There's too much speculation around what families have and can access. We are still beholden to school choice. We have a right to choose our LEA. We have even more of a right in terms of placement and, you know, least restrictive environment and what that can look like. If there are LEAs doing good jobs, we hope that they share that across the board, make it public so other families can know what to advocate for in their, through their own schools and their LEAs. We want as much knowledge of what's happening in every LEA, all 65 of them, how you're handling it. If your parents are loving it, then we need to know what you're doing right. If your parents are not handling it, then we need to organize right along with them, right? So that to improve services, and we want to be partners, right? That's the truth. We want improvement. We don't just want, like, I can do better things than agitate. This is out of necessity. We also request what support is being offered to children, to child development centers, home visitors, and other providers that are responsible for early childhood special education. Angelique, later on, I hope that you speak on the challenge with the child care reimbursements, because they're really setting up the child development centers who are a lot of them will have to close because they cannot afford to keep their doors open based on the current policies. So what faith does that have to our youngest students with developmental delays and disabilities under Part C and those in transition to Part B? Lots of speculation around evaluations, especially in the transition from Part C to Part B. There's too many things happening, and are our doctors well informed to support more at this time? And all the other providers, we don't know. I don't know a parent who does know. And I've had the opportunity to engage with a couple of the early childhood families. So if OSSI is offering guidance to all LEAs, we also want to know how they're implementing IEPs and 504s. What support is OSSI offering? So, you know, as a parent and as an advocate, we direct a lot of our heat to the LEAs, but we know, if you know how IDEA works, you know, the chain of command is that OSSI is the state education agency. Yet they consistently, from my vantage point, refuse to do their due diligence and offer the right technical assistance, offer the right regulatory enforcement to hold the LEAs to greater accountability, and provide support, real support, better support in the implementation process, which is what a lot of families struggle with. You can get all the great things you want on that IEP if you're, you know, savvy enough as an advocate. Implementation is a whole nother question. So those are our general demands. There's so much more to this document, but we also have provided a few recommendations. We can call them demands as well. And because we want to see these actually happen in the real world. We want to see the creation of a citywide interagency and multidisciplinary body. And no, we don't want to hear there's a SAP, that's the Special Advisory Panel on Special Education. And no, we don't want to hear that you have an ICC, which is the part C of SAP, Interagency Coordinating Council. These are bodies that are required under IDEA. And again, all of them are appointees of the mayor, and you know, they serve at the pleasure of the mayor. That doesn't compromise their loyalty, because I know a lot of great people on these bodies, but they literally serve on these bodies as an advisory capacity to a limited measure. They have even less power than the SBOE, for example. And more importantly, these bodies are not equitable bodies, right? Like, to get a mayoral appointment, you have to be in the know. Where is the citywide body that engages a wider pool of our advocates that sit on these bodies and directly impacted families, and finding ways for this to replicate on the school level, as we do, as I am an appointee on the School Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. That is our great intention. You can be on a citywide level, but schools have a lot of autonomy, and nothing happens in a good way unless it trickles down to the school level. So we want to create this body that really enforces greater accountability, bringing more, opening and widening this, this door on what it means to provide support and know what's informing the advice coming to you and the support coming to you, and how we can create real processes of that trickling down to the school level. And, you know, sorry if trickling down is a triggering word for those of you all right now in the Trump era and Reaganomics, but to provide an avenue in which existing citywide bodies focus on special education. Well, that's what I just said. Sorry, the first one is actually, well, that's the sum of it. I'll let you all take it in. And again, this is a growing body. So part of why we felt it was important to have this town hall meeting is so that we can do better. I mean, we're, again, a limited scope of parents and advocates, parent advocates, family leaders. And our role is to bring the whole tribe along this ride. And we want to get a better sense. I'm going to stop sharing. We want to get a better sense of where you all are, what your experiences are, how we can collaborate if you're already in an organization, and how we can enlist you if you're looking for a way to activate in the work that we're doing on the PAAT team, on PAAT. So I'm going to rest my pipes because I've been talking for a very long time. Well, I do want to say last thing in terms of the projection of where we're going. Where we're going from here, right? Our step one, again, was writing a letter to the mayor. Step two was sending out the petition, of which we have over 100 people creeping up to the 200 mark that have signed onto that petition. So with 6 people that signed onto the letter and 100 plus that have signed onto the petition, this is another opportunity to engage where we can strengthen our demands and strengthen our voice on this question in an ethical and inclusive way. And we will reorganize ourselves and send out a new set of demands with accompanying acknowledgement of the number of people that have signed the petition based on this. So what you're going to help us do here is strengthen the message through this town hall, through your voices, through your stories. We're not going to ask you to put them into language. We'll do that work. We'll put it into language. We just want to hear your authentic thoughts and your authentic feelings. So I'm going to first pause, and I want our PAAT fellows to please kick off in sharing your experiences, and know that this is safe space, but know that this is public space, again, that this is being recorded. So if it's something that you feel that you may not want to talk about on something that was going to go out on social media, feel free to put it in the chat. The chat is not going to go out publicly. And feel free to put your email in the chat and we'll follow up with you. And you've registered for this event, so we have your information and we'll send correspondence. Feel free to respond back if you want, to speak with us on a one-to-one basis. We invite people into our meetings. And so if you ever want to join us in our, planning, feel free. And for our organizational partners, we offer that, we extend that offer to you as well. And we will actually reach out to you because we're just making our rounds in terms of bringing in our partners to work with us. So I'm gonna kick it to, I see Fari is on. So Fari, I'm gonna start with you in the testimonials, and if you can introduce yourself as you weren't here for introductions. So just share your story, just to catch you up. Share your story on what you experience as a parent, as a grandparent in your case, and anything you want to share about what this period has been for you. One very last thing. I want to make clear that reopen the schools or don't reopen the schools, our families are critical and our needs are essential to be supported. So we need solutions in either direction. But since reopening the schools is, the hot topic, and our kids seek to benefit or be penalized for not having a good reopening, a safe reopening, an accessible reopening, then, we have to be very careful. So that's part of this conversation. But whether or not you're distance learning, you're in the home, wherever your location is, your placement is at this point, we're all placed at home. We want to hear what your challenges are. So Fari, take it away.
Okay, Jumbo, everyone, and to my PAAT fellows, hello, my sisters, to all of you who are joining us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so thankful to have you join us and to share with us your journeys to help us create more actions within the education advocacy community. Again, I'm Fari Gamina Tumpe, custodial grandmother of 2 amazing children with social and emotional learning disorders. One of them I had to remove from DCPS. It was just too much cultural biases, and it was actually crushing and breaking her spiritually. So I am a part of the private sector at Kaumba Kaumba School of the Performing Arts. It's private school, but I'm still with DCPS for my grandson, who is at Marie Reed Elementary School, and who I'm very satisfied with the goals and objectives from Marie Reed for my grandson. However, my grandson digressed quite a bit. He was making great progress. Once the pandemic hit, he fell back a few notches. I guess the separation anxiety, and then the combined with the accessibility to video games, too many hours in the day, as well as not having the regular interactions with his friends was truly impactful on his social and emotional learning ability. So my biggest challenge was trying to be pigeonholed into signing an IEP that would decrease my grandson's services without having any assessments, evaluations, or anything evidence-based that could give us a trajectory of as it relates to where he was academically. So, okay, not only is he digressing, and you want me to sign an IEP that decreases many of his existing services, but you have no evidence in terms of evaluations to assess exactly what his needs are at this time. So I thank God that I had Chioma advocating with and for my grandson in the IEP meeting with me. Had I not had Chioma, I might very well have signed that IEP, trusting and believing in what the LEA representative and the social workers and the special education teachers were trying to convince me to believe. So I had a great advocate. But think about it, my sisters. How many of our families do not have a great advocate? How many of our families do not have someone who knows educational advocacy, who knows the rights under IDEA, who knows, compensatory services and what our children deserve? How many of our families were pigeonholed into signing these IEPs that may have decreased services or may have kept services right where they were when additional services were needed? So I'm very happy to share that just last week they began some of the assessments and testing that my grandson needed to give us an understanding of where he is right now. So, and once those assessments come in, then I can be a much better informed parent as it relates to agreeing or disagreeing with what services they deem appropriate for my grandson. So, I mean, that's just one thing. The other challenge with my grandson is he has completely disconnected from he is completely disconnected in a way where when he graduated, if you will, from the BES placement to an inclusion position within the classroom with all of his friends in the school, he had a great sense of pride, and he felt, he felt inclusive. He felt like he had accomplished something amazing for himself. And once we began distance learning, all of that enthusiasm just fizzled away. And I believe he just felt probably more alone than he did in the BES placement. I believe he felt more isolated and less enthusiastic without all of the supports that he was getting, before the pandemic hit. So, and then that's just one on my grandson. For my granddaughter, she has almost completely checked out because the private sector, even though it has provided all of the cultural and attentiveness that my granddaughter needed, without the connectivity to the drum, the African dance, all of the principles by which we live, she has completely checked out of everything. So I'm in the process now of trying to obtain an independent IEP for her, because as it stands right now, her psychiatrist has quit. We don't have access to a therapist. We don't have medication management. We're just going willy-nilly right now, and without any clear direction and purpose for her. So that's an entirely different show. But right now, I'm just in the process of trying to make sure that all the assessments and testing and checks and balances, to do my due diligence as it relates to truly understanding exactly where they are right now and what they need right now. That's something that I'm sure is widespread as it relates to how do we move forward if we don't even know where we're going, where we are. What's the starting point if you don't even know where to start? So that's my story right now. And I'm just very thankful that I am getting the assessments for my grandson, and that I do have enough wisdom to know that my granddaughter needs that independent IEP, and just trying to figure out economical ways to obtain that. So that's it for me. And I can popcorn it, or Tioma, you can pass it along.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually want to recalibrate a little bit and maybe reverse this, right? Or maybe blend it rather. So if there is any body that's not a PAAT fellow that would like to share your story, we want to make sure that we capture it now. I know a couple of people have private messaged me before they exited out, and we will follow up for the one-to-one. But for those of you that are here, we'd love to hear your stories and your experiences, and maybe kind of pepper it with the fellows as well. So anyone want to go? Is that Onari? Did you raise your hands?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. And do you mind introducing yourself? Because I think
Sure.
we're here for introduction.
So I was actually invited by a young lady named LaJoy. We've worked together in the community. And I'm here on two sides of the coin. I have worked in public charter schools as the director of outreach since 2004. But I do have two African-American sons who have been in special ed for two totally different reasons. And it has been an uphill battle. My oldest son had open brain surgery in 2016 and was put in a position where he was not fully functioning for over a year. And I actually had to pull him out of DC schools I had to fight them really honestly, because they did not want to say that he had traumatic brain injury. And this is a child who had an open brain surgery and was in the hospital for 2 months. On the other side of that, I have a younger son who is now 8 years old, who they tried to diagnose with ADHD and medicate. And I really feel bad for a lot of people, because if I had not had the resources of being in a charter school for so long, I would not have known where to go. I would not have known who to talk to. I would not even have the language to argue or fight for my child. And it's still quite frustrating, because I've had to move my children all the way to Waldorf in order to get them, because I didn't, even though I knew the language and I knew the people to pull on the resources, I did not know organizations such as yourself, even being in the school for so long, because what ends up happening is that, of course, it turns into people filling your head with feeling like you should not reach out, or making you feel like you don't have enough time to invest in fighting. And so now I have a child that's been diagnosed with adjustment disorder at 8 years old, who they tried to medicate for 4 years. And we're at home, homeschooling, and he's just as happy as the world is over. But what does that look like for him returning? And that's my fear, because they have called and they're, okay, well, we're going to bring them back because Charles County wants to bring back the children in special ed first. And I'm scared to death. And so, of course, I've said no, but now that puts me in a bind, because I'm at home with my children, as we all have been for quite some time. And as educated as I feel on having the resources to be able to reach out to Kennedy Krieger and take my son for testing, which most people can't do, or be able to call a special ed coordinator who's been working for 20 and 30 years to ask her for the language to be able to argue or defend my child in a meeting where I know that they're misdiagnosing him. I had to fight for a whole year to get him placement. And now he's been home, which I know is going to be a grave setback, since March. And this is a kid who runs down a hallway and rips things off the walls and cries and screams and kicks and falls out if they don't let him call his mom to tell me that he had an A on his paper. He doesn't really know how to express himself. So I guess I'm honored, should I say, more than anything, to be amongst people that I feel like I can learn from, because this is always a process of continual learning, no matter what state your children attend school. But also in a place of where I can be honest, like you said, to be honest, of fear. I'm scared. I'm scared to know what this is going to look like, because now that I've told them I don't want my son to go back to school with this next reopening, this is going to give us going on a year where he's been at home with mom and dad, and that's where he wants to be with his siblings. But how is he going to adjust going back? Because there's no feed-in process. It's just the buses will be there Tuesday. So, you know, I hopped on this call because I am, of course, wanting to put information out to receive education and information, and also additional support, because in our community, you really don't get a lot of support when your child doesn't have a physical ailment. My son that had brain surgery, people on top of it, they're understanding. And even though he's healed now, it's still more of an understanding to that versus a kid that has adjustment disorder, which is a fairly new diagnosis to the community, because it also had been categorized as ADHD for so long, and that's not always the case. So, you know, just being at a place now of wanting to have that comfort of knowing what to do, because there is no right or wrong answer, just more so, how do we hold each other's hand in the process? So thank you for that space.
Thank you so much. And I'm just here trying to take a few notes that I hope that we can recap when we come back to talk about.
Oh, Nari. The young lady, the young.
Okay, she's gonna put on mute for a second. I think she's talking to her grandchild.
No.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'll go ahead and go. I really connected with what Onari said. My son has been a lot happier since he's been at home with me, but I know that, you know, he also needs social interaction, and I can't imagine trying to send him back. I really struggle with it, especially because it would be a brand new school, brand new teachers, because we recently moved from Ward 3 to Ward 4. And even before the pandemic, he had, you know, issues with behavior and academic demands. So I can't really imagine what it would look like trying to send him back and what the repercussions would be if he's not able to comply with social distancing measures and things like that. Like he needs a lot of physical reassurance and hugs and things like that. He's a very affectionate child. So trying to, explain to him, oh, look, you can't have support from your teachers when you need it. And most of what you're going to be expected to do is sit in your seat and do work, because that's how teachers are going to be able to, enforce social distancing measures. And also just concerns about, few opportunities for sensory breaks and movement breaks. I suspect, and I'm going through the process now, to see if he also should be diagnosed with ADHD. He has an autism diagnosis. We are working with homeschooling at home, but I'm a single parent working full time. I'm also a graduate student. So my schedule is a little busy. So trying to fit in flexibility to be able to do his, homeschooling and try to teach him how to read. I have no idea how to teach a child to read. I've been working really hard on it, but I know he's not really progressing in the way that he should be, but I still don't feel comfortable sending him to school in the conditions that are present. Imagine how stressful it's going to be for teachers, for students. Like I said, what non-compliance is going to look like with COVID-19 measures and social distancing, hygiene for kids that are in first grade that have perpetually runny noses in the wintertime. So I have a lot of concerns.
Yeah, here. Same here for sensory sensitive children. Thank you so much for that, Anna. Any parent wants to share?
I'll go. Can you hear me? Okay. So I have a high schooler that's in a charter school. And so what I'm experiencing on our end is where we were coming from his other school at 8th grade, he had a dedicated aide. Because I believe in not making decisions solely for my son, I make them with him because he can't articulate his thoughts. Tyler decided that he wanted to try his high school year without a dedicated aide. I'm having mixed reviews with that because I find that because of the schools being overwhelmed, that it's almost as if he's kind of left in the background and I'm not notified or there's no conversation going on prior to me receiving an email saying that he's got an F coming up for his semester, which we know in high school years, at no point do you want to hear that your child's getting an F, but certainly not while they're in high school. Aside from that, I've expressed to them the challenges that we're having as a family because I believe in that being a starting point. Because if the school doesn't know the challenges that you're having at the home front, then, I feel like they're not able to adjust their side of it, not me adjust to them. And it's almost as if we're still in this rhetoric of you're going to conform to what's comfortable for us. And so I just don't understand, I know that this has been the same behavior for other schools towards parents. I'm disheartened at the moment that we're having a conversation about returning to school buildings when we can't even come up with a conducive plan for while they're virtually learning. So that's pretty much my concern as far as on the high school end that I would put to the forefront is just when you get these dedicated aides, it was really challenging for them to virtually participate. Like you said, Chioma, having access was an issue. And then what I found out is because of the demand on the school is that the schools weren't just where in the school building he was dedicated to Tyler and maybe one other student. Now this particular dedicated aide had 5 different students that he had to maneuver through a virtual learning plan for. And so that meant that a lot of times it was just like a quick phone check-in, hey, you need to get on this class. And then, you know, for the rest of the day, he's left to his own devices, but you still want to hold him accountable for making sure that your work is done. That's crazy. So yeah, that's just been my experience with this whole virtual learning thing. Big T.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, you know, I feel your pain. And the concept is nothing about us without us, right? They keep doing it. They just don't know how to stop doing it. So anyone else want to share their story?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Michelle. You know, I think a lot of what has been already said resonated with me in various ways. When distance learning began in March, it was a bit of a sigh of relief, not because I was concerned about my children getting sick at school, though I think being at the height of the crisis, it definitely was expected that we would go home, but it gave me relief from the constant phone calls about my son. And it gave us an opportunity to just take a break, pull away, and it also gave us a window to peep in to what we might actually be, you know, what my son was experiencing at school. And so we've had quite the journey as it relates to the ebbs and flows. We were with DCPS. We have since moved to Bridges Public Charter. And in the experience, I can't say that it's dramatically different, but it's different. My son's needs seem to be a bit unique, and similar to what Onari said, we've always contended that the diagnosis is not particularly complete, and there are portions of it that are incorrect. So we continue to keep working toward ensuring that we understand fully what we're working with so that we can support him as well as request services. When we think about going back, you know, we've opted to remain virtual because that option allows us to maintain a better work schedule for ourselves versus the up and down. But we ask questions and we don't have answers. You know, what happens if my son goes into the school building with a mask but loses it in 5 minutes? You know, we can barely make it from the house to the car and the car to the store without having to find a mask. So, you know, what is the PPE requirement? Will the school be able to provide that? Will the school call me as soon as he loses it? Or will the school start calling me to come pick him up because he's fighting them because he doesn't want it on? He doesn't want to keep it on his nose. You know, will I start receiving calls for that? Will I start seeing disciplinary violations for that reason? Will I start seeing disciplinary violations because now we also, you know, we can't social distance, right? Because we don't have a sense of boundaries, and you know, and how is all that going to be perceived? And is the school going to be spending countless hours managing that from a behavior and safety standard versus teaching? And so when we talk about sending our students with disabilities and special needs, I think that, you know, there's multiple facets. Some students with, I think, as Onari said, her student with who had the brain surgery, they understand medically and they can work with that, and they don't look at that quite the same way. But those of us who have students with neurodiverse issues, you know, diagnoses that are still outstanding and we're still working through it, I don't know that the school system really has a plan for them, because the school systems do not really have a plan for them in real time, right? So, you know, similar to what Yolanda said, there's not a solid plan during virtual, but they already don't have a solid plan for them when we don't even have a crisis. And so now we're coupling an already crippled system on top of a crisis moment where, you know, quite honestly, my thoughts are that the district is making this choice because it really does help them refute comp ed cases, because those of us who will choose to remain virtual, when we start to say we aren't getting our services, they'll be able to say, well, you chose virtual, so that's on you. And so I do really think that it's part of DCPS's typical stance of protecting themselves from legal, you know, retribution. And so, you know, so we have a lot of concerns as it relates to it, you know, and we don't know. We want those answers. And for those already who have joined us with the petition, I greatly appreciate that, because we know that our voice is not being heard. We know that our voice is missing. We know that while community members have participated in town halls and made comments, we know that not every ward has been adequately represented in those conversations. We know that there have not been concerted efforts to bring those voices to the table. So, these are the questions, because again, our children oftentimes are the ones most likely to be railroaded into places that we are trying to protect them from. And this moment in time could potentially be placing them at greater risk, unbeknownst to us, because many families do want to get back into an opportunity for socialization, for opportunity to provide social emotional support and get them the services that they really aren't able to get when they're at home on a regular basis. And so, we're getting it. Our students are still definitely battling. We have been asynchronous quite often because just sticking with the schedule is not easy because we are at home. But we have continued to try to work and fight and maintain, our son's academic rigor. Because he is an advanced learner, we've always had to supplement his academics, and so we continue to do that and push him forward. But it has had a silver lining because we are grateful for the opportunity to be able to be with them, to take some of this into our own hands and have some control over where their academic, life is headed, and to really see firsthand what's happening in the classroom, which also helps us better advocate for them as we continue to converse with the school and other members of the community, on this subject. So, again, I thank you all for joining us and continuing to share your stories. And we hopefully you can continue to help us by recirculating the petition to really try to get to amplify, what we're saying here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. I hope we can unpack that once we get to, adding on to our demands and our next steps. This question of are they doing this? And I'd love to, hear what LaJoy from AJE and Angie from CLC have to say about that. And, definitely want to call on you guys. And of course, Khadijah, you working at LEA, to the degree in which that, you can say anything about that. I'd love to hear from you. But hold that thought in a second. I want to hear more from our parents. So anyone want to share your story and your experience during distance learning? So Naomi, I think you just came in. Please feel free to just jump right in if you want to introduce yourself, if you want to share, your story, and anyone else that has not yet had a chance to share their story.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi Reed. I'm actually I'm the credit recovery coordinator at WLA. And my experience with distance learning has been twofold, just because I'm a parent as well as an educator. I have thoroughly enjoyed as a teacher being able to work on the computer and being able to, I feel like the kids kind of get the college experience just to have the onus of the lessons and what they're supposed to do and staying on top of a calendar and just the day-to-day checklist of things to do. I feel like note-taking and things of that nature, I'm able to, check a little more clearly, watch their computer screen and just stay on top of things. And I feel like they're actually feeling like a little bit more ready for college because they actually have a calendar, understand a schedule, and get the they understand the onus is on them to get this actually done, and they have to get up and go and do it every day. The issue with me as a parent has just been very, very hard. I've had difficulty just understanding my daughter's reading levels, and is there regression there? The testing isn't the same. I don't get results back the same. I just feel like there's going to be so much regression with her from where she was when she left the school year. So it's really, really twofold for me as an educator. I totally have enjoyed it, but as a parent, it has been so difficult, and I would love for her to be in the classroom. However, if I had to choose, I would definitely err on the side of caution and stay home with the, just that there hasn't been a vaccine, it hasn't been tested. And you just can't guarantee that parents won't send their kids to school sick or, or even if they know, you know what I mean? So that's really been my thought process. There's a lot of anxiety behind it for me. I don't want to experience any regression in my daughter's education. However, as an educator, I understand the need to keep everyone safe around us. So that's kind of been my overall experience.
Yes, thank you for that. And you have such a unique experience, and I would really love to have a one-on-one conversation with you.
Sure.
So please feel free to just private chat me your information. We definitely want to support our educators, especially our special educators, right? They're already isolated in a school community just by virtue of serving our kids, right? They're not, they're living in a parallel universe. And if they are a special educator because they're a parent of a child with a disability, well, you know, good luck, right? Like in terms of how your whole life looks right now. So we do stand in solidarity with our educators and would like to find better ways to collaborate on this question. We're asking for their participation on this body that we're calling the mayor to convene, and as well as the related services. So thank you, Naomi. Anyone else want to share? I see you chatting, Renee. Do you want to share your story? Do you feel comfortable verbalizing?
Hi, I don't have the video on right now, but I have to hold my
Somebody else
question.
went. Fuck it.
That's okay.
I cede my time to the next parent. Sorry. Okay.
Oh yeah, the struggle is real. We're all balancing and struggling. So go ahead, please share your story.
Oh, hi. Wasn't there another parent that was right that there was another parent a minute ago? Hi. Isn't there another parent that was behind me that wanted to speak?
Oh, was there? Did I miss somebody?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Get to everyone.
Well, anyway, the question I'm trying to work with my son. He's we're using like an after school dance program in via Zoom, mind you, to kind of keep him engaged right now. So I can't speak long because I'm going back and forth to make sure he's still engaged in the Zoom lesson. But I did have a generic question for anyone who had anybody heard anything about how they were going to work with the high school age group of kiddos on completing credits like community service, or, you know, are they going to make any changes? DCPS talking about making any changes to requirements for graduation based on pandemic, or have they just not even said anything about that? And then thirdly, I do have a really specific comment about the experience I had with Alexa in having to get this an emergency COVID test. My daughter is 16 and she was, quote, sneezing during class. And so they asked me, you know, the vendor of her services demanded that we submit a negative COVID testing. And so after going through that experience of like, how would you identify where you would take your kid to get COVID tested? Where, what's the time frame for getting their results back? I mean, all that stuff is, DCPS is just has not putting any thought to who is going to really be doing those testings on demand with timely results, without a financial burden, without a time burden to the family, you know, because but anyway, that's a really deep dive, because I just had that experience on Friday, and then we got our results back within 48 hours, but it's just a whole other aspect of, I don't think the city has thought through this at all. And I definitely don't think they have thought through the multi-jurisdictional nature of our kids' lives. That sure, we may have DC residency, but maybe our therapist is in McLean, Virginia. Maybe our therapist is in Maryland. Maybe our medical people are in a different jurisdiction coming into DC to provide the services. So I don't think there's a multi-jurisdictional approach at all at this point, especially when it comes to if I'm trying to put my special ed kid on a bus to go to an out of jurisdiction school, just because DCPS considers the schools to be, quote, open. But I'm gonna mute myself and hold for the.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Renee.
I can, this is Elizabeth Reddick. I have a daughter that's in high school, and actually it has been mentioned as far as the community service. I'll speak to that. The community service requirement has not changed, and they don't anticipate it to change because they feel like there's enough opportunities for students to receive online services. Now, my daughter is the type of kid that is involved in everything that there is to be involved in, so she's already met her community service requirements for the year. But even in March, like they started putting out different ways, you know, for kids to reach their community service requirements. But the problem with that is a lot of those avenues depend on what your child's intellectual abilities look like and also what their academic abilities look like. So like my daughter is typically an A student, so it's very easy for her to go on the Smithsonian website and to create, like one of the opportunities they have is you can go on the Smithsonian website and you can translate, well, you could basically transcribe handwritten documents into typed text. So that's one of the ways that you can do things, or you can write letters, you know, to soldiers or to like just people, first responders. Like they have all of these different ways that you can do that. I can try to find the link that I have and send it to you, Renee, so that you have some resources. But yeah, that's something that has been brought up, and they said like just flat out right now we don't see a need to change it, and I guess it kind of like goes back to who made this requirement in the first place. Like,
yeah,
why it depending on who made the requirement in the first place. Like, I understand the need of the requirement, but at the same time, it's kind of like, in my mind, it kind of follows the are they on probation? So you really gonna hold a diploma because they haven't feel this community service requirement. Like it's always bothered me that this was a requirement. I understand giving back, but you know, it's kind of ridiculous. Like you never know if this child has anxiety or if they have some type of, you know, social emotional concern that is inhibiting them from being able to meet these requirements. But they also said that they're trying to be more flexible on what organizations can qualify. So if you also have um, basically, if you already have something that your child's involved with, those organizations are free to apply to OSCE to get approval to be on the list for community service. So I don't really know how to feel about that because, like I said, in that kind of a case, you know, if it were my son, granted he's 8 now, but if he were a high school student, I feel like it would be very difficult for him to meet those requirements. As far as the educational piece, as I've been told by like my doctors at Children's National for my kids, they told me, oh, and some of the teachers have told me this too. Like I don't know how true this is, but this is just, you know, speculation, that if you are providing services in Washington, D.C., and you are not licensed in Washington, D.C., then you're not able to do that because your license has to be in where the person that is receiving the services is. And like I said, I also heard speculations from some of the teachers that are Maryland teachers, and Maryland requirements was, okay, say if I'm licensed in Maryland and I'm licensed in DC, I'm okay because I'm teaching from Maryland to DC. But if I'm not, you know, I'm not licensed in both places, then I'm violating Maryland's law by teaching in Maryland virtually to DC. So I don't know if that was part of the reason why they're trying to like force this reopening. You know, I haven't heard a lot of talk about that. That's something that I would be interested in hearing more about. Like I said, it was just hearsay that I heard that there were some concerns about meeting those requirements. So I feel like your concerns, Renee, of course, are very valid. You know, that we have a majority of our teachers are coming outside of DC, well, at least I speculate that most of our teachers are coming outside of DC from Maryland to actually teach in DC. And what does that look like, you know, for as far as the legal requirements go? And is that why there's so much pushback? And like, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of politics out there that we're not privy to. And yeah, so that's just like, you know, my little spiel about what I know about those two particular questions.
Yeah, totally, I understand. And we are there with you. And I know that that's a unique angle for the transitioning youth, of which Renee and Carla have better experiences with. I do want to, Carla, I hope you chime in, but pause for a second. I want us to switch gears because I want to make sure that we end right at 6 o'clock. Because I got to transition right into another meeting at 6 o'clock, and I want to respect your time. And we can always follow up again on a one-to-one. You know, I want to have at least, you know, 7 minutes at the end to talk about our next steps. But the rest of the time, for right now, I'd like us, majority of the rest of the time, I'd like for us to switch gears. You can maybe tie in some of your testimonies if you have anything particularly to add to comments on our current demands, expansion of our current demands, additional demands if you want to reframe some of the commentary that was just said through your testimonies. I won't recap in the interest of time in verbally, but we're happy to follow up with everybody one-on-one before we send out any more communication to the mayor. And EDCO and company. So Khadija, I want to turn to you because I know you have to hop off pretty soon. Can you speak to, if, you know, as a self-advocate, and if you feel comfortable speaking to it, representing your LEA, like what would you like to see us thinking about? What do you have to offer? Do you have anything to say about the question of, you know, schools taking steps to avoid comp ed, or not? You can leave that for children's law and AJE.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the question. I think that one of the things that we're really grappling with at Rocket Ship is the question about the way to most effectively provide, you know, supports to, you know, our most vulnerable families in person. One of the things that we're doing is a series of community conversations with our families to talk to them about their distance learning experience. One of the challenges that I've been reflecting on is I'm looking at the engagement survey data that DME put out in June, and looking at the response rates, and Ward 3 and Ward 6 are very much overrepresented. And I saw that that was also the case when I was in the ombudsman's office. And one of the things that I grapple with are two things. One is that we know that there's this virus that is very dangerous, but we also know that there are students who are not served well online. And there are predictions that there's going to be large drops in, you know, just like in learning because of on distance learning. And so one of the things that, you know, I've been grappling with, you know, in my work and talking to families is how do we balance that? Like, how do we balance keeping everyone safe with making sure that our some of our vulnerable families don't fall behind? And the reason why I mentioned the response rates is because there's just a group of families that we're just not hearing from. And what does that mean about the conversations that we're having? What does it mean when we have families who may be interested in in-person learning, but aren't able to get onto Zoom, who don't have reliable internet? How do we engage them, and how do we do so safely. And that's something that we're really thinking about at Rocket Ship, which is why we're having those community conversations with our families, as well as with our staff. And in terms of personal experience, I can speak to my work in the ombudsman's office, because I don't work in it special education issues in my current role. I'm more of a kind of organizer role, though I do, hear about special education issues. It is unfortunate that a lot of what I've heard are the exact same things that I heard in the ombudsman's office. I worked with about 400 families in my role there, and probably worked on supported with over 100 IEPs. And to see that it seems like we haven't really improved is really disturbing since I was in the office. And so the thing that I'm sort of grappling with, sort of in my role, and both from a personal perspective, is how do we ensure that we're getting certain kinds of voices in this space? Parents, first and foremost, and those who are a caregiver in some form or fashion. I'm very sensitive to homeless issues. And so do we need to be like going to homeless shelters to talk to families there? Like, how do we get perspective of as many families as possible? And how do we get our decision makers to understand the importance of doing that? Because it should be self-evident, but it doesn't seem as though it is. And I don't have any answers, but those are some of the things that I'm really grappling with right now.
Thank you so much for your candid share. And we know that there are people in the administrative teams, right up to central office, right up to OSSEs, right up to the mayor's office, that are allies just like you. And so, we hope to work with our allies wherever they're stationed throughout the city, and, look forward to, collaborating with you and keeping you abreast of what's coming up. Thank you for being here. You're mute. But okay, thanks. I'd love to hear from AJE LaJoy, if you want to say something. Feel free to tie in your own testimony. Feel free to, speak on what you've heard as an education advocate with AJE. Feel free to speak as you are.
Thank you, Chioma. I call her the doctor of everything. Dr. Chioma Oru. I love her so much. So I guess I'll start off with me personally. I don't even know where to begin really personally, because it's just been like really difficult, I think, managing it all. And then the fact that I literally signed consent for evaluation. Actually, let me back up. For reevaluation March 1st. And then I think March 13th, that's when COVID basically, I think it hit, and then, the mayor had closed everything down. So not only are we just trying to figure out distance learning in regards to Abria's IEP, we are in the middle of a reevaluation. And so that's just been trying to manage that. Abria's, it's like, she takes a distance learning kind of. She really doesn't really like it. We're doing better with it because she knows, oh, okay, mommy doesn't want me to get sick. But it's just really stressful. The advice that I could give to all of you is to really stress the schools to give the children an individualized distance learning plan. Now, this is the thing. The individualized distance learning plan, this is something for COVID. This is something because we're in an emergency. This should not replace the IEP. This is something that should just be put in place because the children are basically learning online, right? And honestly, I just say work with the teachers. Like, if your schedule permits you to do A, B, and C at a specific time, then that's what you have to do. There is, and I know this sounds really mean, but right now there is no if, ands, or buts about it. It's not a request. It's, this is where I am. This is what we're gonna do. Deal. I don't even know how else to say that. Hey, Carla. I don't even know how else to really say that, because that's, everyone has different capacity. Yes, Abria. You always do this. I swear I feel like you know when I'm talking. Yes.
Happy meal. Yummy happy meal.
I'm getting you pizza. Don't make faces. Kids love pizza. Thank you. I'm almost finished. 5 minutes. Mommy really likes it when you listen.
Everyone loves yummy happy meal.
Yes.
I love yummy happy meal.
Yes, I know you love yummy happy meal. Okay, go dream about it.
Happy meal?
Go dream about it. How about this? You can't do no. First of all, you have interrupted me. You did not say excuse me, and then you want a treat. So in order for us to do this, you need to turn on your listening ears. Turn them on. Turn them on.
Mommy to fly.
Okay, mommy will get to fly. Turn on your listening ears. Have a seat for a second. I'm almost done. And then we can discuss what we can do after we've listened the first time. This is what she did to me in the candidate form, I swear. Y'all know my life. Y'all don't. So right now the answer is no, because you're not listening. So this is the last time. Last time you interrupt me again, we're gonna have a problem. Do you understand me? Yes, mommy.
Yes, Mommy.
Thank you. Catch a bubble.
Okay, great.
So this is what we deal with. So imagine trying to do this with distance learning with the teachers and just, it's a lot. So I think it's just really about meeting, just having the schools just kind of meet you where you are. In regards to comp education, IDEA didn't go nowhere. And, maybe Angie can speak a little more about this. IDEA didn't go anywhere. It wasn't waived. It is still mandated under the federal law. So schools do still have to do it. And if our general education peers are being educated online, so should our children that have disabilities. So if the schools are just completely not giving you anything at all, or just giving you the opportunity to participate in learning, that's definitely a problem. And you all can reach out to this. I'm gonna throw it to Angie. I feel like Abria took up my time. Sorry, Chioma.
No worries. So please, and if you don't mind making it just a little brief, Angie, we definitely want to hear. Love to hear your thoughts on the comp ed question, but we are running a bit low on time, and I just want to be able to talk about next steps.
Right. Well, I will be brief. I'm sorry if you hear a little buzzing, but I will be brief, partially and mostly because I'm not actually an attorney. I'm an investigator with CLC. And so what I will do is I'll provide my contact information. I work with the attorneys and I kind of do things like this where I'm able to reach out into the community and provide feedback so that our attorneys can do their jobs better and as best they can and really be agents of change in the community. So I'll provide my contact information, and any questions, any concerns, any sort of other things that you want us to maybe see if we can reach out to other people as well, to loop other organizations in as well. I'll provide my contact information so I can help facilitate that as well. So brief in that I don't actually have the answer, but I will be more than willing to help you find that and assist in any other ways. But thank you. This has been just a lovely time to witness and really be, just an observer of such resiliency among the incredible parents here.
Chioma, can I chime back in really quick? Does anyone have any questions really quickly? I just wanted to answer. If anyone has them, just let me know.
I kind of do have a question, because what does a parent, okay, in my situation, I know how to teach my child, right? But Aussie already they didn't like the way that I was doing things, blah, blah, blah. So I had to enroll them in school. Now we went through the whole education process. So as a parent now, my child's home, and I feel like he's not getting the type of education that he should be getting. And so I feel like I'm trying to teach his teachers how to teach him, what curriculum to use, like all of these other things. And we have like 4 educators on this call. None of them know how to, teach my child. So I'm doing all the work, but they're getting the credit. And like, I'm at a point where I really just want to be like, you know what? Send me what it is that you need my child to do, and I will have him do it and send it back to you. But then it's like, when it comes to a comp ed thing, I feel like unless you're physically here, you can't do nothing for him. you can't do anything for him. I have to do it because he needs that type of one-on-one where you have to constantly redirect him. Sometimes you have to literally touch him, turn him around, put him back in the chair for him to just write a sentence. Like you ask him one question and he goes back to another tangent. So like I feel like as a parent, can I just be like, you know what, like, and still have like, I guess, protection under the law to say, you know, this is not working. Like we need to come up with something else.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So it's a couple of things you can do. If you have a schedule that's working for him, give that to the school. Like again, you have to document. Give that to the school and says, this is where we are. We're in an emergency. This is just where we are, and see what they say. Two, the LEA is still legally responsible to give him FAPE. So under these circumstances, whatever they can provide, just let them provide it. Three, we all know parents do all the work. We were doing all the work before COVID-19, but I digress. So in regards to that, again, I would just say email them because he's still entitled to his rights, and so are you under FAPE, so the Free Appropriate Public Education. So just email them a schedule that you think would work, that you just think would work. Four, my next question would be, do you want to do homeschooling? Because if that is something that you really want to consider, then we need to get you the paperwork to give to OSSI to get you registered.
Yeah, LaJoy, a couple of things. One, I would love to invite you back in your capacity at AJE to speak with us. Just circle back on when that could be. I love this concept of, you know, maybe a partnership in your capacity in AJE is having maybe some times when, especially if you do the IEP vaults, days when, you know, you can speak in that capacity, or if Maria or Stacy want to tag on in the legal side, and just make it as, I know you guys are really busy, but you know,
Yeah.
be able to just do this, like where families can have these open asks if it's something that you're open to. We can circle back more on that. I think that's a helpful service, and I think DC government should pay for it. But
I'm down. Just I'm down. I'll talk to Maria and I'll talk to Stacy. I'm down.
Can add that. I do want to, before, as I move to the closing, anyone that did not get to share their story and wants to share their story, Weave in Motherhood, which is a show that, you know, myself, Michelle, LaJoy, and Yolanda, who is not currently on the call, are co-hosts for. It's another opportunity to just kind of share your thoughts, your stories, your voice, your vision. So Michelle, can you please drop that in the chat again if it's too far up? Because I know there's a lot of conversation in the chat.
I sure will drop that in the chat.
Sure. Our very next steps, and I want to know, I want to acknowledge Angelique. I want us to be able to say something about early childhood, so I'm going to make next steps really brief. I think your story is important, needs to highlight. Carla, and I really want you guys to do rapid fire, 1 minute each, please. We can do a part 2 of this once I kind of lay out the next steps. Maybe we'll circle back in some way to highlight you know, what you're doing with decoding dyslexia, the challenges you're facing with your transitioning daughter, you know, to the degree you're comfortable sharing on this platform. So I want to give you guys a minute to do that just as soon as I make this announcement. And I noticed that we have Helen and Shapiro from ArtStream here. So my kids go to the Frost School, and my son loves ArtStream. And so, you know, it's a really great program. And I'm wondering if maybe your interest in being here is a question of out of school time, if we need to have a demand around out of school time programming. You know, I don't know what challenges you may be facing if you are a provider here in this. I don't know if you're in DC or if you're just in Maryland, because my kids are non-public. So real quick, I'm going to give you guys the last 5 minutes. We're going to go Angelique, Carla, is Carla still on? Is she? Yeah, she's still on. Yep.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yes, and then Helen. So rapid fire. So the last thing I want to say, and I want to make this announcement. I'm going to follow up Angie. I think it's LaJoy gone. I'll follow up with her offline. Carla, particularly you two, maybe Artstream. I don't know if you guys are in this realm. Don't want to put you in a, advocacy capacity if that's not what you're designed to do. But want to say that we're going to send a letter back. We're going to first draft the demands, redraft the demands, send it to this listserv of people that are here. Get your last minute input, and then and see what happens. Now we are prepared to go into action, as in we want to have a demonstration press conference in front of DCPS, march down to Aussie. Our scheduled date is October 22nd. If by some great miracle we hear back from the mayor after we send our second draft, which we hope to do by the end of this week or over the weekend, first thing Monday morning, then we will recalculate. But for right now, we want to have an action, and we'd love the support of your organizations to be present with us, to endorse us, to support us, to tweet us, whatever capacity that you can offer to show up for families, to offer a statement, to talk to the press, because we are going to release a press release in support of us. There are different things that I'll follow up one-on-one just on that note. So those are our very next steps. So Angelique, take it away. Carla, Heller.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angelique Spade Marshall, and as you know, I have a double-edged sword. First, I have a daughter with special needs that has definitely been in the school system. I have dealt with the IEPs. I have dealt with the court system. I have dealt with the educational graduation date because I put her in Wood Services, but she has a diploma from Wood Service and a diploma from Dunbar High School because I'm in Ward 2. But also as an educator, it is hard for providers who currently don't have kids to reopen their daycares to support children with special needs. But because Aussie, first of all, doesn't want to pay. They paying everybody on an average pay at this moment. Whatever you were paid from October to January, they took those pays, mashed them together, divided it by 3, and that's what you're getting until they come up with a infrastructure or actually a payment plan to support providers. Fortunately, I never closed during COVID-19. I think a little differently. I was already clean, so I didn't have to worry about it. Knock on wood, nobody never got it, but the allergy season is here and the cold season is here. We have to worry about that. But putting children with special needs in a pod would definitely be great, but we have to make sure that it's clean and it's safe and that everybody can actually access it, because it's dependent on where you live if you get the supports or not. And just like you guys stated, the IEP was so overwhelming as a parent just coming in having a daughter with special needs, because you don't actually understand the need. If a person understands what the child need as far as educational background for teaching them, then we wouldn't need an IEP. We would tell you what they need and to keep it moving. So I'm thinking to have a list of things that you think they might need and see if they support. Once they do an access what the child needs, you'll definitely be able to support them. I'm familiar with Renee's case because also, I didn't tell you, I'm a contractor at Hospital for Sick Children. So I support over 300 kids that are part of the program with childcare, with their educational needs and supporting them. And she can tell you the communication and the level of trust that both of her children have with me dealing with children with special needs. And when the kids come to the hospital, we normally helping them with their homework. And guess what? That one-on-one, not only do their attention span strengthens, but that's without medication. They don't take the medication until they leave me. But with me, so I know they're able to do it. But right now, because the school system doesn't have an infrastructure, kids are currently home with their parents. The best way they know how to do it is to give them medication. But we as parents and educators and advocates should come up with a plan to see if it works to support our children. We also need to look at what they're doing in other states and countries, because I found out in Paris that some of the children with special needs, they got 3 support workers, not just 1, but 3, due to their behavior and the aggression that they have. But anything you guys need as far as support from the education side, the advocacy side, the hospital side that I'm knowledgeable of, I would definitely help out But Chioma is right. As far as education, a lot of the providers don't want to deal with the children with special needs, not because they don't want to deal with the children. It's because of the support from the government. If your child needs speech and language and they're already not in school and already not getting paid, you're adding so much work on a provider who has other children in her class. So it is a lot. And a lot of people are not coming back to work. You're going to see in these future months that daycares will not be reopening because providers have found other jobs. Their workers have found other jobs and to become an essential worker, like for Amazon or the drugstore, because they still have to maintain and take care of their families.
Right.
But so we have to do it. Okay, you can go ahead, guys. We have to do it.
I'm so sorry. We are right at 6 o'clock. I just maybe want to give you guys a minute, like please, really just a minute to share your thoughts. Carla, do you want to just quickly share any thoughts? And please keep it.
Well, I just wanted to say where I am. My kids are in college, so I'm dealing with RSA as well as disability services in college rather than IEPs and 504s. Decoding dyslexia is still trying to get legislation passed with the council, and they're still doing drafts and stuff. We're hoping to have the first reading on the 20th. And we're also working on the intersectionality between race and reading difficulties, and we will have some events coming up in the late fall.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up. I feel like we should just have a conversation, a roundtable at some point, maybe after all of this, just around secondary transition and, you know, especially as it relates to graduation and, you know, higher ed and RSA, like that's a world that we need to dig deep. So Heller, please go ahead.
All right, 6. First, I apologize for coming late. I got the word at the last minute from my board member, who's apparently a neighbor of Renee's, and she said, "Oh, here's the link." So I jumped on. So I missed the beginning. We're not an advocacy organization, but we certainly support the needs of students with special needs. And the teachers trying to teach them and the families. So ArtStream offers performance opportunities for people with IDDs, autism, all levels, all abilities. I'm thrilled that your son, Chioma, is enjoying at Frost, and we are teaching at Frost online. So we have a full online schedule right now, classes, theater companies, all kinds of things going on. And we teach all ages through partner organizations like the Frost School. So if your school or your organization wants to bring us in to teach your group, we will teach any age. For ArtStream programs that are on our website, those are 18 and up. So any adults, young adults, 18 and up who want to participate, we have plenty of scholarship funding. We welcome people from anywhere in the metro region, and we'd love to have you get involved. It's art-stream.org, and I'd be happy to answer questions in the future.
Sure, can you put your information in the chat, please? I know you registered. We'd love to follow up. I'd love to engage if you're interested. If you're not, if you're a provider in DCPS schools, charter schools, what that experience is like. We have contemplated reaching out to OST. We know that there's an ask and increase the funds for OST. We want to support that in the disabilities capacity and special ed capacity. There are not enough aftercare programs, not enough recreational programs, art programs, dance programs, you know, theater programs for our kids. So I would love to circle back, maybe invite you to our fellows. Let's talk about how we can collaborate one way or the other.
Happy to do that. All of our work is aimed at social and communication skills. That's really what we're teaching through theater. And so we can help engage your son or daughter so that you don't have to sit there and make sure they're doing their work and they're learning new skills. So
Right.
Happy to share in the future.
Thank you so much. And everyone will be in touch soon via email. And if we do a part 2, we'd hope that you guys join us before our action. If not, we will definitely have another town hall at some point. So we hope you stay in the loop. I will request if anyone does not want to be on the mailing list, please let me know. I'll add you to my mailing list. And we'll request that when we send out the draft for people who may want to be on our mailing list. Thank you so much, and have a great evening, everybody.